Levity. While the base game tried to insert some levity into the story with Bruce, even that storyline took a grim dark turn. To help with that, the Blade of Galadriel introduces a cast of orcish characters to help Eltariel wage guerrilla warfare while Talion deals with stuff. These characters are decidedly over the top and joy to have on the screen.
Tinder, did you hear that? It was Bones! Glorious Bones who did this! Come out! Let's make things go boom together!
I am Eltariel, the Blade of...
Most importantly, their appearance is not restricted to a single mission. They are sprinkled in throughout the main story missions of the expansion. Different creative approach to the extended cast of the piece is appreciated. It's almost like the developers could come up for air only after the base game was finished. They finally realized that while negative emotions like hopelessness or desperation are integral themes of anything Lord of the Rings, the feelings on the other side of the coin are just as equally important. Injecting a little levity and ridiculousness makes the story work a lot better than the stern downward spiral of Talion in both Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War. One might argue that Redback served a similar role in both Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War. I found his whole deal to be one-dimensional. There is only so much one can do with the main trait of being a coward. Light wielding combat. Eltariel showed off her light wielding powers a bit in the base game. With the expansion, her powers are fully fleshed out. While the moment-to-moment gameplay is in my estimation already the strongest part of the base game, the addition of light wielding kicks the whole thing into yet another higher gear. This is all with the context of the Nemesis difficulty setting, where 3 hits usually mean the player is down for the count. Getting held back in larger scraps is a bit tricky with Talion in the base game, while Eltariel has several tools to help with that. The end result is that the player spends less time on low health hunting for a lone orc to drain and more time in the thrill of combat. RPG systems. The multitude of layered systems engineered for grind take a considerable hit with a more focused experience. A long system is provided, sure, but the developers recognize that the player doesn't want to unlock the same set of base skills and throw in 20 from the base game from the get-go. Unlocking all of Eltariel's skills was rather straightforward, and in my experience it happened roughly 3/4 into the expansion. On a related note, the player character doesn't have a level. I'm sure that a level is used in the background to calculate damage numbers, since the orcs that are encountered do still have levels. In combination with the problem of excessive health from the base game and restrictive resistances on most challenge orcs, a large part of combat in the expansion boils down to spamming the one attack that does damage to a given orc. To be fair to the game, every element has its own set, and all orcs are vulnerable to at least one elemental attack. However, selectively running through each map to obtain pieces to exploit weaknesses will take even more time than pushing through encounters. Moreover, in some instances, the hints are not even correct, so the player might feel even more foolish for following what the game suggests. Depth of the experience. Finishing every piece of content the expansion has to offer took me around 4.5 hours. More than half of this time was spent on doing the optional encounters for gear sets. This leaves roughly 2 hours for the main story of the expansion. The overall amount of content here is very comparable to side arcs that were present in the base game. The only difference is a somewhat more generous use of cinematics. Considering how grindy the base game was, the content from the expansion would have been appreciated a lot more had it been included as part of the base game. Closing thoughts. Unfortunately, Monolith Productions is between a rock and a hard place. They have found a diamond in the rough with the combat and Nemesis systems of the original Shadow of Mordor. Corporate requirements dictate increased monetization, and instead of focusing on polishing the systems up, the combat took a hard hit with the artificial level gating and RPG mechanics aimed at stretching out the content first and foremost. Even after all the paid loot box craziness was taken out, I believe that the developers should have gone one step further. Why stop at removing the arbitrary damage numbers and bonuses? Rip out enemy levels altogether, throw out item rarity. Keep the sets and use what you did correctly with the special sets. Namely, effects that modify how existing abilities work and enhance the looks of the player character. I still believe there is a way out here. Focus on the Nemesis system. The core of it still works excellently. Some aspects of the player leveling and equipment sets work great. Focus on shorter, well fleshed out content. Make sure that the filler of your creation is minimal. The success and loads of people buying and recommending your creation will follow without fail. I hope you'll have a wonderful day. Thank you for your time.